The evening air carried a hint of autumn chill as people rushed along the busy streets of Manhattan. Among them was Lily Chen, hurrying toward Le Ciel, an upscale restaurant nestled between luxury boutiques and corporate towers. Her worn backpack bounced against her back with each quick step, containing her schoolbooks and a small notebook filled with musical notations. Lily was already 10 minutes late for her shift. Her piano professor had kept her after class to discuss her technique, and though the feedback was valuable, it meant she now had to rush. She couldn't afford to lose this job, not when tuition payments loomed and her tiny apartment rent was due next week. "I'm so sorry I'm late," Lily gasped as she burst through the employee entrance. The kitchen was already in full swing, a symphony of clattering pots and sizzling pans. Her manager, Tony, looked up from the reservation list with a frown that quickly softened. "Third time this month, Lily, but you're in luck. Jackson called in sick, so we need you on the VIP section tonight." Lily's eyes widened. The VIP section meant better tips but also higher pressure. "Are you sure? I've only covered there twice." "You'll be fine," Tony said, handing her an extra starched apron. "Just don't spill anything on anyone important." The Harrington party booked the entire back area. 12 guests. As she quickly changed into her uniform, Lily's mind raced through who the Harrington party might be. The name sounded familiar. She tied her long dark hair back into a neat bun, straightened her collar, and pinned on her name tag. The main dining room of Le Ciel was a picture of elegance. Crystal chandeliers hung from high ceilings, casting a warm glow over tables draped in crisp white linens. A grand piano sat on a small raised platform in the corner, where the house pianist played soft melodies that floated through the room. Lily paused for a moment, her eyes lingering on the beautiful instrument. Her fingers twitched at her sides, a habit she'd developed years ago when she saw a piano she couldn't play. Music had been her escape since childhood, when her grandmother first taught her on an old upright piano. Now, despite studying at one of the most prestigious music schools in the country, she kept her passion private from her workplace. Here she was just another server trying to make ends meet. "Chen, the Harrington party is seated." "They need drink orders now," called the head server, snapping Lily back to reality. She quickly made her way to the VIP section, separated from the main dining area by elegant privacy screens. As she approached, she heard laughter and the distinct sound of glasses clinking. Taking a deep breath, she stepped around the screen with her most professional smile. The group seated around the large round table fell silent as she approached. Men and women in expensive suits and dresses turned to look at her, but one man at the head of the table commanded the most attention. He didn't look up as she approached, focused instead on something on his phone. "Good evening. Welcome to Le Ciel. My name is Lily, and I'll be taking care of you tonight," she said warmly. Trying to hide her nervousness, the man at the head of the table finally looked up and Lily nearly gasped. She recognized him now, Richard Harrington, the tech billionaire whose face had been on the cover of business magazines and news websites. His company had revolutionized clean energy storage, making him one of the richest people in the country. His dark eyes studied her with mild interest. "We'll start with champagne," he said, his voice quieter than she expected. "The Dom Perignon Rose Gold." Lily nodded, writing it down, though she knew that bottle cost more than she made in 2 weeks. "Excellent choice. Would you like to see our dinner menus while I get that ready for you?" As she distributed the leather-bound menus, she noticed Harrington watching her. Not in the uncomfortable way some wealthy customers did, but with curiosity. "Have you worked here long?" he asked suddenly. Surprised by the personal question, Lily fumbled slightly with the last menu. "About 8 months, sir." He nodded as if confirming something to himself, then turned his attention to his guests. Lily returned moments later with the champagne and an ice bucket. As she carefully poured for each guest, she listened to their conversation. Something about a new tech campus being built upstate. The business talk was interrupted when one guest asked about the soft piano music coming from the main room. "Do you play?" Harrington asked the woman who had mentioned it. "Oh, poorly," the woman laughed. "My mother insisted on lessons, but I never had the patience." "Music requires discipline," Harrington agreed, his eyes drifting to the piano, visible beyond the screens. "I always admired those who master it." Lily moved carefully around the table, filling the last glass. As she stepped back, her elbow caught the edge of the ice bucket. She lunged to steady it, but in doing so sloshed water onto Harrington's sleeve. "I'm so sorry," she gasped, mortified. She quickly grabbed a napkin and offered it to him. "Please let me." "It's fine," he said, taking the napkin. "Just water." His calm reaction surprised her. Most VIP customers would have made a scene over less. As he dabbed at his damp sleeve, his eyes fell on her wrist where her uniform had pulled up slightly, revealing a small tattoo. A simple design of piano keys that wrapped around her wrist like a bracelet. "Interesting tattoo," he commented. "Are you a music lover?" Heat rushed to Lily's face. "Yes," she admitted. "Very much so," one of his guests chuckled. "Richard has a knack for noticing details. It's what makes him so successful and sometimes annoying." The table laughed and Harrington smiled good-naturedly. "I'm just observant," he said, still looking at Lily. "What kind of music?" Caught off guard by his continued interest, Lily hesitated. "Classical mostly, piano." "She probably plays herself," said another guest, a woman with sleek silver hair. "Don't you, dear?" Lily nodded slightly. "I do, yes." She didn't elaborate on how much of her life was devoted to it. Harrington's eyebrows raised slightly, but before he could ask anything else, Lily smoothly changed the subject. "Shall I tell you about tonight's specials?" After taking their orders, Lily escaped to the kitchen, her heart pounding. She'd never mentioned her music to anyone at work, preferring to keep her two worlds separate. Being a server was how she paid bills. Music was who she really was. Throughout the evening, she provided attentive service to the Harrington party. They ordered lavishly, rare wines, delicate appetizers, expensive main courses. Harrington himself was surprisingly undemanding compared to other wealthy patrons she'd served. As she cleared the dessert plates, she noticed the house pianist take a break. The gentle background music that had filled the restaurant all evening suddenly stopped, leaving a noticeable silence. Harrington noticed too. He looked toward the empty piano bench, then back at Lily as she collected the last of the coffee cups. "Your tattoo," he said suddenly, causing her to pause. "How long have you been playing?" "Since I was 5, she replied, unsure why she was sharing this with him. "My grandmother taught me." "And now?" he pressed. Lily hesitated. "I study at the music conservatory," she admitted. "I work here to pay for it." Something flickered in his eyes. Interest, perhaps recognition. He glanced around at his guests, who were engaged in their own conversations, then back at the empty piano. "Do you know what I've learned after making billions?" he asked, his voice low enough that only she could hear. Lily shook her head, unsure where this was going. "That people rarely surprise me anymore," he said. "Everyone wants something, everyone has an angle. It gets unpredictable." Before Lily could respond, he stood up suddenly, his chair scraping against the floor. The noise drew the attention of not just his table, but nearby diners as well. "Ladies and gentlemen," he called out, his voice carrying across the now quiet restaurant. "I have a proposition to make." Lily froze, her tray of empty coffee cups still in hand, as all eyes turned toward them. Tony appeared at her side, whispering urgently, "What's happening?" "What did you do?" "Nothing," she whispered back, just as confused. Harrington smiled, a challenge in his eyes as he looked directly at Lily. "I'd like to make a wager. I'll donate $10,000 to charity if our server here plays something on that piano." A shocked murmur ran through the restaurant. Lily felt her face flush as dozens of eyes turned to her. Her private passion was about to become very public. Tony looked between Harrington and Lily, clearly torn between customer satisfaction and staff protocol. "Mr. Harrington, our staff isn't usually—" "It's a simple dare," Harrington interrupted, still looking at Lily. "One song. Unless, of course, the tattoo is just for show." There was a teasing note in his voice, but Lily detected something else too. Genuine curiosity, perhaps even hope. This wasn't just a rich man's whim. He actually wanted to hear her play. Her hands trembled slightly as she set down the tray. Every instinct told her to politely decline and return to the kitchen. Playing piano was intimate for her, something sacred. Not entertainment for wealthy diners. But then she thought of her upcoming tuition payment, of the international competition she couldn't afford to enter, of all the nights she practiced alone in empty classrooms because she couldn't afford a piano of her own. "10,000 to any charity?" she asked, finding her voice. Harrington nodded, a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "Your choice." The room held its breath as Lily looked toward the gleaming grand piano. In that moment, standing in her server's uniform with all eyes on her, she made her decision. She had no idea that walking toward that piano would change everything. The walk to the piano felt longer than it actually was. Every step Lily took across the restaurant floor seemed to echo in the unusual silence that had fallen over the normally bustling space. Conversations had stopped mid-sentence. Even the kitchen staff had paused their work, peering through the service doors with curious expressions. Lily felt a bead of sweat form at her temple. This wasn't how she had imagined her first public performance at Le Ciel would be. In her work uniform with no preparation, as part of a rich man's dare. She glanced back once at Harrington, who watched her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Was this just entertainment for him? A way to break up the monotony of another expensive dinner? Tony, her manager, stood frozen near the bar, clearly unsure whether to stop this breach of protocol or let it play out. When their eyes met, he gave a small, resigned nod. The restaurant's owner would probably forgive anything if it pleased a customer like Richard Harrington. As Lily reached the piano platform, the house pianist, an older gentleman named Victor who had barely spoken 2 words to her in 8 months, stood up from the bench with a questioning look. "May I?" Lily asked quietly. Victor studied her face for a moment, then nodded. "The action is light," he whispered as he stepped aside, musician to musician. "Good luck." Lily sat down, adjusting the bench slightly. The polished black grand piano gleamed under the soft lighting. She placed her hands in her lap for a moment, taking a deep breath to steady herself. The keys before her were familiar territory, her refuge, her passion, yet she had never played under circumstances like these. She looked up and was startled to find that Harrington had moved from his table. He now stood at the edge of the main dining room, arms crossed, watching her intently. His guests had followed, spreading out to get a better view, their expressions ranging from amusement to curiosity. "Any time now," called one of the men from Harrington's party, breaking the silence with a chuckle. "The suspense is killing us," Lily nodded, more to herself than to anyone else. She lifted her hands to the keys, hovering for just a second before making her decision. Not Chopin or Liszt, nothing too technically showy. Instead, she would play from the heart. Her fingers touched the keys, and the first notes of Debussy's Clair de Lune floated through the restaurant. She started softly, tentatively, as if introducing herself to both the instrument and the audience. The gentle, impressionist piece seemed to match the restaurant's elegant atmosphere. For the first few measures, she was acutely aware of every eye on her, of her uniform, of the unlikeliness of this moment. But then, as always happened when she played, the world around her began to recede. The music took over, carrying her to that private place where nothing existed but the conversation between herself and the instrument. Her body swayed slightly as the piece built, her fingers finding their way through the familiar pathways of the music. The delicate, dreamy quality of Debussy's composition filled the space, reflecting moonlight on water, just as the composer had intended nearly a century and a half ago. In the kitchen doorway, the chef had emerged, wiping his hands on his apron. Waitstaff stood motionless, trays in hand. At nearby tables, diners had turned in their seats, some with forks suspended midway to their mouths. As Lily reached the climax of the piece, where the music swells with emotion before returning to its gentle beginning, she finally allowed herself to look up. What she saw almost made her miss a note. Every face in the room was transfixed. This wasn't the polite attention given to background music. This was the rapt focus of people unexpectedly moved. Her eyes found Harrington's. Gone was the slightly amused challenge from earlier. Instead, he watched her with complete concentration, his expression thoughtful, almost vulnerable. When their eyes met, he gave her a small nod, as if acknowledging something only the two of them understood. As the final notes faded into silence, Lily kept her hands on the keys for a moment longer, reluctant to break the spell. Then reality rushed back as the restaurant erupted in applause, not the polite, obligatory kind, but enthusiastic, with some guests even rising to their feet. Lily felt her cheeks flush as she stood from the bench. Victor, the house pianist, was among those applauding, a look of professional respect on his face. She gave a small, awkward bow, unsure of the proper protocol in this strange situation. As the applause continued, Harrington approached the piano. "That was Debussy, wasn't it?" he asked, surprising her with his knowledge. Lily nodded. "Clair de Lune, yes." "Beautiful," he said simply. Then more quietly, "But I suspect you're holding back." Before she could respond, he turned to address the room. "Ladies and gentlemen, I think we can all agree that was lovely. But I wonder if our talented server might grace us with one more piece." The diners responded with encouraging applause. Lily glanced at Tony, who was now smiling broadly. All concerns about protocol forgotten in the unexpected turn of events. "I don't think—" Lily began. "Double the donation," Harrington said, not to the room but to her alone. 20,000. But this time, play something that challenges you, something that shows what you're really capable of." There was no mockery in his voice, only genuine interest. Lily studied him, trying to understand his motivation. "Was this just the whim of a bored billionaire or something else? Why?" she asked directly. Harrington seemed taken aback by the question, as if he wasn't often challenged. After a moment, he smiled. A real smile that softened his features. "Because talent like yours shouldn't be serving champagne," he said quietly. "And because I'm curious about what else you're hiding." Lily considered her options. One song had been unexpected enough, but a second felt like a deliberate choice, a statement. Yet the thought of $20,000 going to charity, she was already thinking of the music education program in her old neighborhood, was too significant to dismiss. "All right," she agreed, sitting back down at the piano. One more. This time she didn't hesitate. Her fingers launched into the opening of Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 2, a piece of tremendous technical difficulty and emotional depth. Without the orchestra accompaniment, she had to suggest the missing parts while executing the piano's demanding role. The difference was immediately apparent. Where Debussy had been impressionistic and delicate, Rachmaninoff was passionate and technically formidable. Her fingers flew across the keys and runs and arpeggios, navigating the complex harmonies with precision born of countless hours of practice. This was the music she played in the empty practice rooms late at night, the pieces she worked on with her professors. This was who she really was, not the quiet server who refilled water glasses and recited specials. The restaurant fell into stunned silence again, but a different kind this time, the silence of witnessing something unexpected and extraordinary. Even the kitchen staff had stopped completely, no longer pretending to work while listening. Lily lost herself in the music entirely now, her body moving with the rhythm and emotion of the piece. The technical challenges, the stretches that spanned more than an octave, the crosshand passages, the rapid chord progressions, flowed from her fingers as naturally as breathing. When she reached a particularly moving section, she closed her eyes, letting the music speak through her. This was why she worked double shifts and lived in a tiny apartment with a leaky faucet. This was why she practiced until her fingers ached and her back cramped. For moments like this, when she could become a vessel for something greater than herself, she opened her eyes just in time to see Harrington's reaction to a particularly difficult passage. His expression had transformed completely from the controlled businessman who had entered the restaurant earlier. He looked genuinely astonished, his eyes wide with surprise and something that might have been respect. As she brought the piece to its powerful conclusion, the final chords resonating through the room, she knew something had changed, not just for this evening, but perhaps for her future. She had revealed herself, stepping out of the shadows of anonymity into the light of recognition. The silence that followed the final notes lasted only a second before the room exploded into applause again, this time with cheers and even a few whistles. Everyone was standing now. Harrington's party, the other diners, the entire restaurant staff. Victor, the house pianist, approached with tears in his eyes. 30 years I've played here, he said, his voice thick with emotion. Never once did this piano sound like that. Lily stood, slightly dazed by the response. Her hands were trembling, not from nerves now, but from the adrenaline of the performance and the realization of what had just happened. Harrington made his way through the crowd that had gathered around the piano. When he reached her, he extended his hand, not as a wealthy patron to a server, but as one person to another. That, he said as they shook hands, was not what I expected when I came to dinner tonight. The crowd around them was buzzing with questions. Who was she? Where did she study? How had no one known about her talent before tonight? Tony was beaming, as if he had somehow discovered her himself. The chef was applauding with his entire staff lined up behind him. What happens now? Lily asked, suddenly aware that she couldn't simply return to taking orders and serving desserts, not after this. Harrington's eyes had that calculating look again, but mixed with Something new, a spark of genuine interest, perhaps even excitement. "Now," he said, checking his watch. "It's nearly 10 o'clock and I believe we still have some dessert coming. But tomorrow?" He paused, studying her with new respect. "Tomorrow we should talk about music, talent, and opportunity. I have a feeling you're just getting started." As Lily followed him back toward the VIP section, the crowd parted for them, whispers following in their wake. She knew that whatever happened next, her carefully separated worlds had collided tonight. The waitress who played piano was now simply the pianist, and there would be no going back. Lily barely slept that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she relived the moment her fingers first touched the keys of that beautiful grand piano. The feeling of dozens of eyes watching her, and most vividly, the expression on Richard Harrington's face when she finished playing Rachmaninoff. Her tiny apartment felt different somehow when she finally arrived home after her shift. The worn furniture, the stack of music books, the faded poster of Vladimir Horowitz on her wall. Everything was the same, yet everything had changed. She sat on the edge of her bed, still in her uniform, and tried to process what had happened. Her phone buzzed with a text from her roommate, May, who worked the morning shift at a coffee shop. "Why is there a video of you playing piano at work going viral?" "Call me." With shaking hands, Lily opened her social media and found what May was talking about. Someone had recorded her performance and posted it online. The video already had thousands of views and comments like, "Who is this waitress?" and "Restaurant server secretly a piano prodigy." "Oh no," she whispered to herself. She hadn't considered that someone might record her. The conservatory had strict rules about public performances without permission, especially for scholarship students. Professor Larkin, her main instructor, was notoriously protective of the school's reputation. Her phone rang. "It was Tony from the restaurant, Lily," he said when she answered, his voice unusually animated. "You've become an overnight sensation. The restaurant's phone has been ringing nonstop with people trying to make reservations, asking if the piano waitress will be performing again." I don't know what to say," Lily stammered. "The owner wants to talk to you. He's thinking of making it a regular thing, you serving and then playing a few pieces each night. We could increase your pay, of course." The idea of performing nightly while still working as a server made her stomach knot. It wasn't the path she had worked so hard for. "I need to think about it," she said carefully. "Well, don't think too long. Oh, and one more thing. Mr. Harrington's assistant called. He wants to meet you at his office tomorrow at 10 a.m. I've already adjusted the schedule, so you're off. The address has been sent to your email." After hanging up, Lily paced her small apartment. Her life had been carefully structured until now. Classes in the morning, practice rooms in the afternoon, work in the evening, more practice late at night. It was exhausting but predictable. Now suddenly everything felt uncertain. She finally fell asleep just before dawn, her alarm jolting her awake a few hours later. She dressed carefully for the meeting with Harrington, choosing her nicest outfit, a simple blue dress she usually saved for recitals, paired with a cardigan that hid the small rip in the sleeve she hadn't had time to fix. The Harrington Technologies building dominated the skyline, a gleaming tower of glass and steel. As Lily approached the entrance, her reflection looked small and out of place among the stream of professionals in business attire entering the building. At the reception desk, she gave her name nervously. "Ah, Ms. Chen," the receptionist said with immediate recognition. "Mr. Harrington is expecting you. Please take the express elevator to the 52nd floor." The elevator rose smoothly, its glass wall offering an expanding view of the city. Lily's ears popped as it climbed higher and higher. When the doors opened, she stepped into a minimalist reception area where a poised woman greeted her. "Ms. Chen, welcome. I'm Grace, Mr. Harrington's chief of staff. Please follow me." Grace led her through an open workspace where dozens of people typed at computers or huddled in glass-walled meeting rooms. Several looked up as she passed, a few whispering to each other. Had they seen the video too? They reached a corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a breathtaking view of the city. Richard Harrington stood looking out at the skyline, his back to the door. He turned as they entered, his expression brightening with recognition. "Lily," he said, crossing the room to shake her hand. "Thank you for coming. Please have a seat." Grace quietly exited, closing the door behind her. "Your office is impressive," Lily said, taking in the view. "It serves its purpose," Harrington replied with a small smile, "though I admit the view helps me think." He sat not behind his desk but in a chair adjacent to hers, reducing the formality of the meeting. "I imagine you've had an interesting 12 hours. "You could say that," Lily said, thinking of the viral video and Tony's phone call. "I'm still trying to process it all." "I owe you an explanation," Harrington said, surprising her. "Last night wasn't just a random dare or dinner entertainment." Lily leaned forward slightly. "What was it then?" "A hunch." He paused, considering his words. "I noticed your piano key tattoo when you were serving us. The way your fingers moved when you poured wine, the rhythm in your steps as you walked. Small things most people wouldn't notice. But my mother was a pianist, so I recognized the signs. You were testing me," Lily realized. He nodded. "I was curious, but I never expected—" He trailed off, then regrouped. "You're not just good, Lily, you're exceptional. Which leads me to my next question. Why is someone with your talent waiting tables?" The directness of the question caught her off guard. "Because talent doesn't pay the bills," she answered honestly. "I have a partial scholarship at the conservatory, but living in this city is expensive. My parents are teachers back home, they help when they can, but you're mostly on your own," Harrington finished for her. "Yes." She straightened her shoulders slightly. "I'm not complaining. Lots of musicians struggle." "True. But not all of them have your gift." He stood and walked to his desk, picking up a folder. "After dinner last night, I had my team do some research. You're in your final year at the conservatory, top of your class according to faculty reviews we obtained. You've won several regional competitions but haven't entered the major international ones." Lily shifted uncomfortably. "How did you get faculty reviews?" "I donated a new performance hall to the conservatory 3 years ago," he said with a slight smile. "The dean takes my calls." He returned to his seat. "The Ruckman International Piano Competition is in 4 months. Why haven't you entered?" The question hit a sore spot. "The entry fee is $2,000. Then there's travel to Vienna, accommodation for the competition week, appropriate concert attire." She shook her head. "I can barely make rent." Harrington nodded as if confirming something to himself. "What if those obstacles were removed?" "What do you mean?" "I mean, what if I sponsored your entry into the competition? All expenses covered. The fee, travel, accommodation, whatever you need." Lily stared at him, certain she had misheard. "Why would you do that?" "Consider it an investment," he said. "The Ruckman winner receives $100,000, a recording contract, and a 3-year international tour schedule. It launches careers. With your talent, you have a real chance." Her heart raced at the possibility. The Ruckman was the dream. Everyone at the conservatory talked about it with reverence. But suspicion quickly followed excitement. "What would you want in return?" she asked cautiously. Instead of being offended, Harrington seemed pleased by the question. "Smart," he commented. "I'd want 2 things. First, the satisfaction of helping discover extraordinary talent. Second, I'd like to establish a foundation for working musicians, those with the skill but not the financial means to pursue their careers. If you win, I'd want you to be the first success story, an ambassador of sorts. And if I don't win, then we tried," he said simply. "The foundation idea stands regardless. Sometimes talent needs opportunity to be recognized." Lily's mind whirled with possibilities. No more double shifts. Time to actually practice properly. A real chance at the career she'd worked toward since childhood. "This seems too good to be true," she said finally. "I understand your hesitation. You don't know me." He reached into his desk and pulled out a business card, sliding it across to her. "This is the contact information for my personal attorney. Call him. He can draw up an agreement that protects your interests. Take a few days to think about it." As Lily reached for the card, Harrington added, "There is one more thing. I'd like you to play at a charity event I'm hosting next month. It would be your formal introduction to my circle, people who support the arts who could be valuable connections regardless of the competition outcome." "A charity event," Lily repeated. "Playing for a room full of billionaires. Playing for people who can open doors," he corrected gently. "No different than what you did last night, except you'd be properly billed as the featured performer, not the waitress with a hidden talent." The way he put it made sense. Still, it was all happening so fast. 24 hours ago, she was just a server who practiced piano in empty classrooms late at night. Now she was being offered sponsorship and performing opportunities by one of the wealthiest men in the country. "I need some time," she said finally. "Of course." Harrington stood, signaling the end of the meeting. Take a week. The charity event is on the 15th of next month, and the Rockman application deadline is the week after. Whatever you decide, the donation I promised to charity has been made. $20,000 to the music education program you mentioned. Lily's eyes widened. You already donated? But I didn't even tell you which organization. He smiled. You mentioned it to Victor, the house pianist, after your performance. He told my assistant when she called this morning. The check has been sent. As she stood to leave, Harrington extended his hand. For what it's worth, Lily, I've built my career on recognizing potential in technologies, in business opportunities, and occasionally in people. What I heard last night was exceptional. Don't let circumstance keep you from becoming who you're meant to be. Lily shook his hand, still processing everything. As Grace escorted her back to the elevator, she noticed people watching her with increased interest. Word had clearly spread about who she was. In the elevator, descending from the rarefied air of the 52nd floor back to street level, Lily stared at her reflection in the polished doors. The same person who had entered the building an hour ago looked back at her, but something had changed. For the first time since she'd moved to the city, since she'd taken on the grueling schedule of school and work, since she'd started to wonder if the sacrifices were worth it, Lily felt something she'd almost forgotten. Hope. The doors opened to the busy lobby, and Lily stepped out, Harrington's business card clutched in her hand like a talisman. The city that had always seemed so overwhelming suddenly felt full of possibility. Now she just had to decide if she was brave enough to seize it. Lily stood outside the conservatory's main building, hesitating before she pushed through the heavy wooden doors. It had been 3 days since her meeting with Harrington, and she still hadn't made a decision. She needed advice, and there was only one person whose opinion she truly valued when it came to her music. The hallways echoed with the sounds of practice. A violin sonata from one room, vocal exercises from another, a trumpet player working through difficult passages. These sounds had been the backdrop of Lily's life for years, comforting in their familiarity. She reached Professor Abigail Reynolds' office and knocked softly. Reynolds had been her piano instructor since her first year, a tough but fair mentor who had pushed Lily harder than any teacher before. "Come in," called a crisp voice. Lily opened the door to find Reynolds at her desk, reading through sheet music with a red pen in hand. The older woman looked up, her expression softening slightly when she saw Lily. Ms. Chen, I was wondering when you'd come see me." She gestured to the chair across from her desk. "Sit." As Lily sat down, Reynolds set aside her work and folded her hands. "I suppose we should discuss your newfound fame." Lily winced. "You've seen the video. The entire faculty has seen it. Dean Morris called an emergency meeting about it yesterday." Reynolds leaned back in her chair. "It's not every day one of our scholarship students goes viral performing Rachmaninoff in a restaurant while wearing a server's uniform." "Am I in trouble?" Lily asked, her stomach tightening. Reynolds studied her for a moment. "No." Though there was some discussion about performance permissions, ultimately the consensus was that the exposure has been beneficial for the conservatory. Applications for tours have tripled since your video went up. A small smile tugged at her lips. "Though I must say you might have chosen a less dramatic way to announce yourself to the world." Relief washed over Lily. "It wasn't planned. It just happened." "Few things just happen with Richard Harrington involved," Reynolds remarked. "Which brings me to my next question. Is it true he's offered to sponsor you for the Rochman?" Lily blinked in surprise. "How did you know that?" "He called me yesterday. Asked about your chances in the competition." Reynolds adjusted her glasses. "I told him you're the most talented student I've worked with in 15 years. Warmth spread through Lily's chest at the unexpected praise. Professor Reynolds was notoriously stingy with compliments. "I don't know what to do," Lily admitted. "It seems too good to be true. Why would he invest so much in someone he barely knows?" Reynolds considered this. Harrington's mother was Elaine Harrington, a concert pianist of considerable talent. She gave up a promising career when she married his father. "I suspect he sees something of her in you." She paused. "But more practically, Richard has always had an eye for potential. It's how he built his fortune, identifying technologies others overlooked. Perhaps he's applying the same principle to you. He wants me to play at a charity event next month. Said it would introduce me to the right people. And you're hesitant because?" Lily struggled to articulate her concerns. What if I'm not ready? What if I embarrass myself in front of all those important people? Or worse, what if I do well, get everyone's hopes up, and then fail at the actual competition? Reynolds' expression softened, showing a rare glimpse of the woman behind the stern professor. Lily, do you know why I've been so hard on you these past years? Because you expect excellence? Because I recognized your potential the first time you auditioned? You played Bach with technical precision, but it was when you made that small mistake in the middle section and recovered without missing a beat. That's when I knew. She leaned forward. Natural talent is rare, but the ability to perform under pressure, to connect emotionally with the audience while maintaining technical control, that's exceptional. You demonstrated both at that restaurant. Lily absorbed her professor's words, feeling both encouraged and terrified by them. But there's something else bothering you, Reynolds observed. What is it? Lily hesitated, then confessed, I'm afraid of owing someone like Harrington. What if there are strings attached that I don't see yet? Reynolds nodded approvingly. A valid concern. The wealthy rarely give without expectation. She thought for a moment. Did he ask you to sign anything? No. He gave me his lawyer's card, said I should have someone look over any agreement to protect my interests. Smart man, Reynolds murmured. And surprisingly ethical. She stood and walked to her window, looking out at the conservatory's courtyard. The Rockman could change your life, Lily. Winners don't struggle for work or recognition. They don't serve drinks to pay rent. I know, Lily said quietly. Reynolds turned back to her. Get a proper contract. Make sure your interests are protected. But don't let fear keep you from an opportunity like this. She returned to her desk and wrote something on a small card. This is the contact information for Alexandra Patel. She's an entertainment lawyer who's represented several of my former students. She'll look out for you. Lily took the card, touched by her professor's support. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, Reynolds said, her usual briskness returning. If you're going to do this, we have work to do. Your Rachmaninoff was impressive for a restaurant performance, but the Rachman requires absolute perfection. She pulled out her calendar. I can give you extra sessions twice a week until the competition. We'll need to select your program carefully. Pieces that showcase your technical ability but also your emotional range. As Reynolds outlined a rigorous practice schedule, Lily felt a weight lifting from her shoulders. The path forward was becoming clearer. After leaving Reynolds' office, Lily walked to the practice rooms. Finding an empty one, she sat at the piano. Not as nice as the one at Le Ciel, but familiar and comfortable. She played a few scales to warm up, then began working through the Rachmaninoff piece again, hearing it now through Reynolds' critical ear, noting places that needed refinement. Her phone buzzed in her bag. It was a text from Tony at the restaurant. Owner wants to know your decision. Special piano position still open. Higher pay plus tips. Lily stared at the message. A week ago, such an offer would have seemed like a dream. More money, recognition for her playing, a chance to perform regularly. Now it felt like a distraction from a much bigger opportunity. She texted back, Thank you, but I need to focus on my studies right now. I appreciate everything. Setting her phone aside, she returned to the piano with renewed focus. After an hour of practice, she took a break and called the lawyer Reynolds had recommended. To her surprise, Alexandra Patel answered directly. Professor Reynolds said you might call, Patel said after Lily introduced herself. I've seen your video. Impressive work. Thank you, Lily replied, still uncomfortable with praise for a performance she hadn't planned. I need advice about a potential sponsorship. Harrington Technologies, Patel said immediately. Yes, Reynolds mentioned it. I can see you tomorrow at 2 p.m. Bring any documentation or correspondence you have so far. After setting the appointment, Lily packed up her sheet music and headed to her apartment. The city streets were busy with afternoon traffic, people rushing between meetings or heading home from work. Her phone kept buzzing with notifications, more comments on the video, messages from classmates, even a few interview requests from local news outlets. When she reached her building, she found a sleek black car parked outside. The driver's window lowered as she approached. Ms. Chen? The driver asked. Lily nodded cautiously. Mr. Harrington sent me. There's a package for you. He handed her a large envelope through the window, then drove away. Before she could respond, puzzled, Lily carried it upstairs to her apartment. Inside, her roommate May was just getting ready to leave for her evening shift. You're famous now and you still won't answer my texts? She teased. Sorry, it's been crazy, Lily said, setting the envelope on their small kitchen table. I had meetings all day. May pointed to the envelope. What's that? More fan mail? It's from Harrington, Lily said, carefully opening it. Inside was a formal letter on Harrington Technology Stationery, confirming his offer to sponsor her for the Roshman competition, along with a draft contract prepared by his legal team. Attached was a personal note. The offer stands. No pressure, but I hope you'll say yes. Also in the envelope was a program for the charity event, already printed with her name listed as a featured performer, though with a sticky note indicating pending confirmation. He's sure of himself, Lily murmured. Of course he is. He's a billionaire, May said, peering over her shoulder. They always get what they want. Not always, Lily replied, thinking of what Reynolds had said about Harrington's mother giving up her career. After May left for work, Lily spread the documents across the table and read through them carefully. The terms were surprisingly straightforward. Harrington would cover all expenses related to the competition, including a stipend that would allow her to reduce her work hours and focus on practice. In return, if she won, she would serve as the face of his new music foundation for 1 year, making appearances at fundraising events and helping select future recipients. There was no claim on her prize money, no long-term control over her career, none of the exploitative terms she had feared. In fact, there was a clause specifically stating that all artistic decisions remained entirely her own. Lily set the papers down and walked to the window of their small apartment. From the 5th floor, she had a limited view of the city, just the building across the street and a narrow slice of sky between the structures. Nothing like the panoramic vista from Harrington's office. Yet standing here, she felt she could see her future more clearly than ever before. The path had always been there, her talent, her drive, her dedication to music, but now the obstacles were being removed, the way forward illuminated. She picked up her phone and composed a text to Harrington. I'll meet with a lawyer tomorrow to review the contract. But yes, I accept your offer. Thank you for believing in me. His response came almost immediately. Excellent. My assistant will coordinate details. Looking forward to hearing you play again, this time in a setting worthy of your talent. Lily set down her phone and returned to the small keyboard she kept in the corner of the living room. Not a proper piano, just an electric keyboard with weighted keys, the best she could afford. She played a few notes, thinking about how different her life had become in just a few days. The viral video, the meeting with Harrington, Professor Reynolds' unexpected support, and now, a real chance at the Rockman. For the first time since she'd arrived in the city with nothing but her talent and determination, Lily felt that all her sacrifices might finally pay off. The waitress who played piano was about to become simply the pianist, stepping fully into the identity she had always known was hers. Tomorrow would bring meetings with lawyers and preparations for the charity performance. The weeks after would be filled with intensive practice and competition preparations. But tonight, in the quiet of her modest apartment, Lily allowed herself a moment to simply feel grateful for the unexpected turn her life had taken, all because a billionaire had dared a waitress to play piano. The ballroom of the Grand Plaza Hotel sparkled with crystal, chandeliers, and the subtle gleam of wealth. Men in tailored tuxedos and women in designer gowns mingled over champagne, their combined net worth enough to fund a small country. At the center of the room stood a magnificent grand piano, its polished surface reflecting the soft lighting. Backstage, in a small preparation room, Lily adjusted the sleeves of her new concert dress, a midnight blue gown that Harrington's stylist had selected for tonight's charity event. The material felt foreign against her skin, so different from her usual jeans or work uniform. 5 minutes, Ms. Chen, a coordinator said, poking her head through the door. Lily nodded, trying to calm her racing heart. She had performed in recitals before, but never for an audience like this. CEOs, celebrities, influential figures in the arts. People who could make or break careers with a single word. The door opened again and Harrington entered, elegant in a perfectly fitted tuxedo. In the month since their first meeting, Lily had come to know him better. His direct manner of speaking, his unexpected knowledge of classical music, his genuine enthusiasm for her talent. Nervous? He asked, noting her expression. Terrified, Lily admitted. These people aren't restaurant diners who happen to hear me play. They're here expecting something spectacular. Harrington smiled. And they'll get it. I've heard you practice. You're ready. He paused, then added, though I have to admit, I sometimes miss the element of surprise from that first night. The look on everyone's face when they realized the waitress was a virtuoso. Despite her nerves, Lily laughed. That part was actually kind of fun, watching people's expectations shatter. That's what tonight is really about, Harrington said, suddenly serious. Not just introducing you to society, but making a statement about hidden talent. How many gifted people are out there serving our food or driving our cars because they lack opportunity? Before Lily could respond, the coordinator returned. It's time, Ms. Chen. Harrington offered his arm. Shall we? As they walked toward the ballroom, Lily thought about how much had changed. The contract with Harrington had been finalized, reviewed by Alexandra Patel and signed 2 weeks ago. She had reduced her hours at the restaurant to just 1 shift a week, enough to keep her connected to her old life while she prepared for the Rockman. Professor Reynolds had increased their sessions to 3 times weekly, pushing Lily harder than ever. They reached the entrance to the ballroom, and Harrington gave her arm a reassuring squeeze before stepping away. He approached the microphone set up near the piano. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, his voice commanding immediate attention. Thank you for supporting the Harrington Foundation for Musical Arts tonight. Your generosity will help us identify and nurture extraordinary talent that might otherwise go undiscovered. The crowd applauded politely. Many of you have asked about the inspiration for this foundation, Harrington continued. It began a month ago when I visited a restaurant called Le Ciel. He recounted the story of that night, noticing Lily's tattoo, the dare, and her remarkable performance. Talent is distributed equally, he said, but opportunity is not. Tonight, I'm pleased to introduce you to an extraordinary pianist who will soon compete in the Rachman International Piano Competition. Please welcome Lily Chen. The applause that followed was curious rather than enthusiastic. These people were still skeptical, still waiting to be impressed. Lily walked to the piano with measured steps, conscious of every eye in the room. She took her seat, adjusted the bench, and placed her hands on the keys. For tonight's program, she and Professor Reynolds had selected 3 pieces: a Bach prelude to demonstrate technical precision, a Chopin nocturne to showcase emotional depth, and finally, the piece that had captivated the restaurant audience, Rachmaninoff. The Bach flowed from her fingers with mathematical precision, each note distinct and clear. As she moved into the Chopin, she allowed herself to relax slightly, letting the music's emotional current carry her. By the time she reached the Rachmaninoff, she had forgotten her nerves, forgotten the prestigious audience, forgotten everything except the conversation between her hands and the piano. When the final chord of the Rachmaninoff faded, there was a moment of complete silence, that precious space between the end of the music and the beginning of the audience's response. Then as one, the crowd rose to their feet, applause thundering through the ballroom. Lily stood and bowed, her cheeks flushed with exertion and emotion. As she straightened, she caught Harrington's eye. He was applauding with the rest, but there was something else in his expression, a mixture of pride and vindication. Later, after she had been introduced to more people than she could possibly remember, Lily found a quiet moment alone on the hotel's terrace. The city spread out before her, a tapestry of lights against the night sky. There you are, came Harrington's voice from behind her. The guest of honor shouldn't disappear. Sorry, Lily said, turning to face him. I just needed a minute to breathe. Understandable. He joined her at the railing. You were magnificent. Even better than at the restaurant, if that's possible. Thank you, she said simply. For everything. Not just tonight, but for seeing something in me worth investing in. Harrington was quiet for a moment. My mother was a pianist, he said finally. Did I ever mention that? Professor Reynolds told me. Ah, he nodded. She was talented, perhaps not quite at your level, but remarkable nonetheless. She gave it up when she married my father. It was expected in those days. Did she regret it? Lily asked softly. She never said so directly. But sometimes I'd find her at our piano late at night, playing Chopin with tears in her eyes. He looked out at the city. I was too young to understand then. By the time I was old enough to ask, she was gone. The personal rev. Surprised Lily. In their previous interactions, Harrington had been friendly but professional, never sharing anything this intimate. Is that why you helped me? Because of her? Partly, he admitted. But it's more than that. I built my career on recognizing potential, seeing value where others don't. Sometimes in technology, sometimes in people. He turned to face her directly. The foundation isn't charity, Lily. It's investment in human potential. The same way I invested in you. Before she could respond, the terrace door opened and Alexandra Patel stepped out. The lawyer had become a friend and advisor over the past month, helping Lily navigate her sudden rise to prominence. There you both are, Alexandra said. Lily, the director of the Philharmonic, is asking for you. And Richard, your speech is in 10 minutes. As they walked back inside, Lily marveled at how quickly she had adapted to this new world. A world where she casually conversed with orchestra directors and foundation heads, where her opinion on music was actually valued. 4 months later, Lily stood in the wings of Vienna's Musikverein, one of the most prestigious concert halls in the world. The final round of the Rachmann competition was about to begin, and she was one of 3 finalists. The journey here had been intense. Preliminary rounds in New York, quarterfinals and semifinals in London, and now the finals in Vienna. Each stage had required different repertoire, different technical challenges. Through it all, Professor Reynolds had been her guide, while Harrington provided the practical support that made it possible. Ms. Chen? 5 minutes, a stagehand informed her. Lily nodded, taking deep breaths to calm herself. She was about to perform Tchaikovsky's Piano Concerto No. 1 with the Vienna Symphony Orchestra, a piece she had dreamed of playing since childhood. Her phone buzzed with a text from Harrington. Whatever happens, you've already won. The world knows your name now. It was true. The competition had been covered by major music publications, and her story from waitress to finalist had captured public imagination. Several orchestras had already approached her about potential performances, regardless of the competition's outcome. As the previous finalist completed their performance, Lily heard the applause and prepared herself. This was the culmination of everything, all the late nights practicing, the double shifts at the restaurant, the years of sacrifice. The stage manager motioned for her, and Lily walked out onto the gleaming stage. The conductor greeted her with a respectful nod. She sat at the piano, adjusted the bench, and looked out at the audience. In the 3rd row, she spotted Harrington and Professor Reynolds sitting side by side, an unlikely pair brought together by their belief in her. Next to them was May, flown in as a surprise by Harrington after Lily qualified for the finals. Even Tony and Victor from the restaurant were there, seated further back, their presence a reminder of where this journey had begun. The conductor raised his baton. Lily placed her hands on the keys. The orchestra began the famous opening chords of the Tchaikovsky. When her moment came to enter, Lily's fingers struck the keys with confident precision. The months of intensive preparation, the years of dedication, all culminated in this moment. The music poured from her, filling the historic hall with Tchaikovsky's passionate themes. As she played, memories flashed through her mind, standing at tables reciting specials, practicing in empty classrooms after everyone had gone home. The look on Harrington's face when she finished playing that first night, Professor Reynolds pushing her to reach for perfection. The final movement approached, the tempo increasing, the technical challenges mounting. Lily's fingers flew across the keys, her body swaying with the music's intensity. When she struck the final triumphant chords in perfect synchrony with the orchestra, the audience erupted before the sound had even faded. Rising to her feet, Lily bowed deeply to the orchestra, then to the audience. As the applause continued, she caught Harrington's eye. He was standing, applauding with uncharacteristic abandon, a broad smile on his usually composed face. In that moment, regardless of the competition's outcome, Lily knew she had succeeded. The waitress who played piano had become the pianist who once waited tables, a story she would never forget, even as she moved forward into her new life. Later that evening, when the jury announced her as the winner of the Rachmann International Piano Competition, Lily stepped forward to accept the prize with tears in her eyes. The golden trophy gleamed under the lights as she held it up, but her gaze sought out the people who had made this possible. I want to thank Richard Harrington, she said into the microphone, who dared a waitress to play piano and changed her life forever. The audience applauded, but few truly understood the significance of her words. Only Lily and Harrington knew how close her talent had come to remaining hidden. Just another server with dreams, working double shifts to make ends meet. As she left the stage, trophy in hand and future bright before her, Lily made a silent promise to herself. She would use her success to help others as she had been helped, to recognize hidden talent in unexpected places, and to remember that sometimes extraordinary ability is just waiting for someone to dare it into the light.